Good. We're both staying incredibly busy, but
You think
hi.
hi,
Yeah, come.
how are you?
Hey, I'm good.
You're joining us?
They say every mask eventually slips, and when it does, the truth underneath is rarely pretty. Welcome to Plathville painted us a picture of a golden boy, a son who supposedly rose from the ashes of a sheltered, suffocating childhood and turned himself into the dream, handsome, ambitious, successful. But behind the flashing cameras, the carefully curated Instagram photos, and the story TLC wanted us to believe, another narrative was quietly unraveling. One not of perfection, but of secrets, betrayals, and cracks in a carefully polished image. And so, the question we're diving into today is one that fans can no longer ignore. Was Micah Plath ever really the golden boy? Or was he just another character crafted for television, edited to fit a role that made the show easier to sell? Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, and this is Sister Wives Daily, where we break down the real stories behind reality TV, the ones producers don't want you to see. If you're new here, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment down below with your thoughts, because I want to hear from you. Did you ever buy into Micah's golden boy image? Or did you always feel like something was off? Now let me set the stage for you. Micah's journey didn't begin in Los Angeles, with modeling gigs and endless sunshine. It began in Cairo, Georgia, inside a house where sugar was forbidden, television was banned, and individuality was stifled under the weight of religious rules. His parents, Kim and Barry Plath, built a bubble so thick it seemed impossible to break out of. And yet Micah, alongside some of his siblings, managed to escape. That escape was his redemption story, the arc TLC wanted us to cling to. He was meant to represent freedom, ambition, and the possibility of reinventing yourself once you broke free from the Plath family's iron grip. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. Because while the show portrayed Micah as this symbol of independence and growth, another version of him was beginning to emerge. A version that wasn't so clean, wasn't so golden, and certainly wasn't so admirable. And the person who found herself at the center of that unraveling was Veronica. What started as a seemingly genuine connection between Micah and Veronica soon became the lens through which we, the audience, began to see the truth. Her heartbreak wasn't just a subplot on a reality show, it was a revelation. Through Veronica's eyes, fans saw the contradictions, the evasions, and the excuses. Suddenly, Micah wasn't just the kid who made it out. He was a man living two lives, the polished golden boy that TLC packaged up for prime time, and the restless young man chasing nightlife, making choices that betrayed not just his partner's trust, but also the faith viewers had placed in him. And that's the journey we're taking today. From the strict rules of Georgia to the flashing lights of LA, from the golden image of a perfect son to the heartbreak that exposed the cracks in his mask. So buckle up, because by the end of this breakdown, the golden boy may not look so golden after all. If you really want to understand Micah Plath, you have to go back to where it all began. Not the modeling shoots in Los Angeles, not the nightlife, not the romantic drama with Veronica. No, Micah's story, like all the Plath children, is rooted in Cairo, Georgia. That's where Kim and Barry Plath built not just a family but a world, a bubble so tightly sealed that stepping outside of it might as well have been crossing into another dimension. The Plath household was not like yours or mine. While most kids grew up watching cartoons on Saturday mornings or sneaking candy at sleepovers, the Plath children grew up in a world where sugar was forbidden, television was evil, and the outside world was painted as corrupt. Kim and Barry weren't just strict parents, they were the architects of a lifestyle. They dictated not only what their children ate and wore, but also what they thought, who they spoke to, and even how they imagined their futures. Cairo, Georgia became the backdrop for this extreme experiment in control. No cable TV, no social media, no processed foods. The children were homeschooled, surrounded by their siblings and largely cut off from peers. And here's the thing, when you raise kids in such an environment, each one finds a way to adapt, to carve out a role that ensures their survival. Some rebel, some conform, some hide, and in that family system, roles became identities. Take Ethan, the eldest son. He was supposed to be the responsible one, the inheritor of his father's role, but Ethan's struggles with independence were heartbreaking to watch. He married young, clinging to Olivia as a lifeline out of the Plath bubble, only to find himself torn between his wife's modern world and the chokehold of his parents' rules. His story became one of silent battles, trying to balance loyalty to his family with his desperate need to breathe freely. Then there was Mariah. If Ethan's rebellion was quiet, Mariah's was loud, fiery, and emotional. She became the rebel archetype almost overnight, ditching modest dresses for ripped jeans and colored hair, singing her own songs about heartbreak and freedom. Mariah's identity as the wild one wasn't just her personality, it was the role she was forced into. Someone in that family had to break the mold, had to shout when everyone else whispered. TLC ate it up, turning her teenage angst into ratings gold. And then we can't forget Lydia. Sweet, obedient Lydia, the prayer warrior. While Ethan struggled and Mariah fought back, Lydia doubled down on devotion. She was the one who tried to please Kim and Barry, the one who played the piano, led prayers, and absorbed the weight of being the good girl. Lydia's role wasn't just about obedience, it was about carrying the moral burden of the family, almost like her parents' spiritual insurance policy. As long as Lydia stayed faithful, Kim and Barry could claim their methods had worked. Now, in this intricate web of roles, where did Micah fit? That's where the golden boy image comes in. Micah wasn't the rebel. He wasn't the obedient one. He wasn't even the eldest son burdened with responsibility. No, Micah was the symbol of promise. Handsome, athletic, ambitious, he represented what the Plath bubble could produce if you stripped away just enough of the rules without completely rejecting the family identity. When TLC first introduced Micah, he was cast as the success story. The one who could step into the outside world and thrive without fully imploding. He was marketable in a way Ethan, Mariah, and Lydia weren't. Ethan was too conflicted, Mariah was too volatile, Lydia was too sheltered. But Micah was easy to package. A tall, attractive young man with dreams of modeling, making friends, moving to LA. That's the kind of arc that reality TV producers love. It sells hope. It makes viewers believe that maybe, just maybe, you can grow up in a restrictive cult-like environment and still come out golden. But here's the catch. The golden boy role wasn't just given to Micah by TLC. It was also baked into the Plath family system itself. In a household ruled by strict parents, every child plays a part, whether they want to or not. And Micah, consciously or not, leaned into being the one who could shine. It made him safe for Kim and Barry. It made him appealing to the audience. And it gave him a ticket out, because being the golden boy meant opportunities that his siblings didn't get. Think about it. Ethan's independence was always overshadowed by his marriage drama. Mariah's rebellion made for compelling TV, but also alienated her from her parents. Lydia was too sheltered to be relatable for mainstream audiences. But Micah could straddle both worlds. He could look wholesome enough to remind viewers of the Plath brand, but daring enough to intrigue those rooting for him to break free. He was in every sense the family's perfect export. And it worked. Modeling agencies saw in him what producers did, a clean slate that could be shaped into a brand. Fans rallied behind him, projecting their own dreams of escape and reinvention onto his story. Micah's golden boy identity wasn't just his, it belonged to the Plaths, to TLC, and to the audience that wanted to believe in him. But here's the darker side. Being the golden boy comes with a price. It means carrying expectations so high they're almost impossible to meet. It means being edited into a character that may not reflect your reality. It means smiling for cameras while cracks are forming behind the scenes. Because the truth is, no one raised in the Plath bubble walked away without scars. And Micah was no exception. The golden boy role shielded him. Yes, it gave him opportunities and freedom his siblings envied. But it also trapped him. Because once you're labeled perfect, the pressure to stay perfect is suffocating. And that's exactly what Veronica's Heartbreak began to expose. It wasn't just about a failed relationship. It was about the collapse of an image. So when we talk about Micah's story being so marketable, so easy to consume, we're really talking about the system that made him. Kim and Barry didn't just raise children, they raised archetypes. Ethan the conflicted heir, Mariah the rebel, Lydia the obedient one, and Micah the golden boy. Each role served the family system, and each role made for compelling television. But roles aren't real people, they're masks. And eventually every mask cracks. That's why Micah's golden boy narrative is so fascinating. It wasn't just his story. It was the story of a family that needed him to shine, of a network that needed him to sell, and of fans who needed him to symbolize hope. And yet, behind all that, he was just another young man trying to figure out who he really was outside of Cairo, Georgia. And so, as we move forward into Micah's journey, from the sheltered bubble of his childhood to the dizzying freedom of LA, from family loyalty to personal ambition, we'll start to see how the golden boy identity both propelled him forward and pulled him apart. Because the truth about Micah Plath is this: he wasn't just born into a strict family, he was born into a role. And roles may make for good TV, but they make for messy, heartbreaking lives. When you think about the Plath family's story on Welcome to Plathville, each sibling has been framed through a specific lens. Ethan is the man torn between love and loyalty, Mariah the rebel who sings her pain into music, Lydia the obedient prayer warrior trapped in Cairo, and then there's Micah. From the very beginning, Micah was cast as the one who could escape not just physically, but socially, financially, and emotionally. TLC needed a poster child to balance the dysfunction. Someone viewers could point to and say, not all of them turned out broken. And Micah became that poster child. It all began when Micah took his first steps out of Georgia. Leaving behind Cairo's quiet fields, the family's rural farmhouse, and the suffocating rules of Kim and Barry, he moved into the shared house with Olivia and Ethan. This was the first time he could even taste freedom. And right away, his curiosity and charisma caught attention. Unlike Ethan, who was still stumbling through emotional baggage, or Mariah who was still raw in her rebellion, Micah seemed light on his feet. He smiled, he flirted, and he leaned into his looks in a way no other sibling dared. That's when the modeling career came into play. His first photo shoots weren't polished at all. In fact, some fans remember those early episodes when Micah, nervous and shirtless, stood in front of the camera while photographers encouraged him to flex or smolder. But instead of mocking him, TLC turned these moments into a growth arc. We were told, visually and narratively, that this was a young man blossoming, stepping out of oppression into confidence. By the time he landed his first real contracts, Micah wasn't just another Plath kid, he was the breakout star. And TLC knew exactly what they were doing. In reality TV, editing is everything, and Micah was edited into redemption. His storyline became the feel-good counterbalance to the chaos of Kim and Barry's crumbling marriage, Ethan and Olivia's marital fights, and Mariah's emotional spirals. Whenever the family tension reached a breaking point, the show cut to Micah in Los Angeles, sun shining, palm trees swaying, his abs glistening on a photo shoot set. He was proof, the show wanted us to believe, that a Plath could make it, that someone from Cairo could not only survive but thrive. Think about how often we saw Micah smiling compared to his siblings. While Ethan clenched his jaw, Mariah cried, and Lydia whispered prayers, Micah was framed as relaxed, charming, and endlessly optimistic. Even his mistakes, late nights, wild parties, awkward dating, were packaged as young men figuring it out rather than failures. The editing never lingered on his flaws. Instead, it emphasized his adaptability, his resilience, and above all, his success. Fans were encouraged to root for him. Social media lit up with comments calling him the only normal one, or the one who got out clean. His modeling became a symbol of triumph, not just because he was making money, but because he seemed to be rewriting the family narrative. TLC leveraged every photo shoot, every interview, and every LA moment to tell a bigger story, that freedom leads to beauty, that beauty leads to opportunity, and that opportunity leads to redemption. But the brilliance of this curation lies in what was left unsaid. While Ethan's independence came with visible pain, Micah's independence was stripped of consequences on screen. We didn't see the financial instability of a new model in Los Angeles. We didn't see the nights of doubt or the sting of rejection. We didn't see the loneliness of starting over without the structure, however toxic, of family. Instead, we saw filtered snapshots, polished arcs, and smiling interviews. Micah's story was turned into a highlight reel. Let's take a closer look at some of the key moments TLC used to cement his golden boy image. The early photo shoots, what could have been an awkward depiction of a sheltered young man fumbling into adulthood, was transformed into a blossoming moment. The background music, the editing, even the photographer's commentary painted it as endearing and triumphant. The move to LA. When Micah left Georgia for Los Angeles, TLC framed it like a hero's journey. Wide shots of the city skyline, upbeat background tracks, and his confident interviews gave the impression of a fresh start filled with limitless potential. Comparisons to siblings. This is where the editing magic worked hardest. While Mariah's struggles with heartbreak were stretched out and Ethan's marital arguments filled entire episodes, Micah's struggles were breezed over. We were never asked to dwell on his flaws, only to celebrate his rebound. The party boy narrative. Micah's nightlife, dating experiments, and even risky choices were never shown as dangerous. Instead, they were framed as youthful exploration. The same behavior that might have been criticized in another sibling was excused, even celebrated, in Micah. This careful curation shaped the way viewers perceived him. Fans weren't just watching Micah succeed, they were being instructed to admire him, to invest in his arc, and to believe he was the family's crown jewel. And in many ways it worked. Online forums often described him as the most well-adjusted, the breakout star, and even the future of the franchise. But here's the thing, all golden boys are, by nature, illusions. They're stories written to give us hope, to distract from the darker truths lurking behind the curtain. And Micah's golden boy persona was no exception. For every smile on screen, there were whispers off-screen. For every perfectly edited photo shoot, there were fans who noticed the cracks. And for every moment TLC pushed him as the safe success story, there were questions about what and who had been left behind to make it so. Micah's rise was never just about him. It was about the system of reality TV, about a family that needed a redemption arc, and about viewers who desperately wanted to believe that one child could outrun the dysfunction of Cairo, Georgia. Micah filled that role perfectly. Handsome, charming, easy to root for. But as we'll see, the role came with a cost. And when Veronica entered the picture, that cost finally became clear. Because sometimes the golden boy isn't a hero at all. Sometimes he's just another mask, carefully edited for prime time. For a while, Micah Plath seemed untouchable. The modeling shoots, the palm trees of Los Angeles, the endless charm. He was cast as the son who beat the odds. But even the brightest golden boy can't shine forever without shadows creeping in. And those shadows began to show up in his relationship with Veronica. When Veronica first appeared on Welcome to Plathville, fans immediately noticed something different about her. She wasn't just another date or fleeting fling in Micah's LA social life. She wasn't a photo shoot prop or a one-off dinner companion. Veronica was grounded, thoughtful, and unafraid to say what she really felt, even with the cameras rolling. And that was rare in the Plath orbit. From the beginning, TLC framed her as the stabilizing influence. In one of her first appearances, she gently but firmly raised concerns about Micah's lifestyle. The late nights, the constant partying, the revolving door of friends. Veronica saw what fans were only beginning to suspect, that Micah's golden boy glow came with cracks. On camera, she was measured and calm, but you could feel the undercurrent of frustration. She wasn't just worried about his career, she was worried about him, and that's what made her so compelling to fans. Veronica wasn't blinded by Micah's looks, or by the fame that came with reality TV. She asked the questions viewers at home had been whispering for seasons. Who was Micah really when the cameras stopped rolling? Did he truly want a future, or was he addicted to the nightlife, the attention, and the image TLC had built for him? One of the most telling moments came in an episode where Veronica opened up about feeling sidelined. She admitted that Micah didn't always answer her calls, sometimes disappearing into LA nights that stretched until morning. The way she said it, equal parts sadness and quiet anger, hit viewers like a gut punch. For the first time, we weren't just watching Micah the model, the charmer, the safe success story. We were watching Micah the boyfriend who didn't always show up, who didn't prioritize the person in front of him. And here's where TLC's editing played another brilliant hand. Instead of glossing over Veronica's concerns, the show leaned into them. Shots of her waiting by the phone, interviews where she admitted her doubts, scenes where she tried to confront Micah with honesty, all of it created a new tension. This wasn't just about whether Micah would book another photo shoot. It was about whether he could handle responsibility, commitment, and maturity. Fans started to see Veronica as more than just a girlfriend. She became the mirror, reflecting back all the questions about Micah's carefully curated image. Every time she asked him why he didn't pick up the phone, or why he stayed out until sunrise, fans heard their own doubts echoed. Was Micah truly as put together as the show wanted us to believe? Or was Veronica exposing the real story, the one happening when the cameras weren't rolling? In one of the most emotional confessionals, Veronica admitted she wasn't sure she could trust him. The vulnerability in her voice made it clear, this wasn't a staged reality TV fight. This was a woman realizing that love, no matter how deep, couldn't survive on charm and excuses. Fans flooded social media after the episode aired, split between defending Micah and praising Veronica for finally saying what needed to be said. And then there was the nightlife. Clips showed Micah out with friends, smiling and carefree, while Veronica waited in the background, sometimes literally, sometimes emotionally. What had once been framed as youthful exploration now began to look like avoidance. Instead of a hero's journey, the editing started hinting at recklessness. The golden boy wasn't just having fun anymore, he was risking what mattered most. This shift in tone was subtle but powerful. TLC had built Micah's image on clean arcs of growth, redemption, and success. Now they let Veronica's perspective chip away at that foundation. Her doubts, her tears, her candid moments gave viewers permission to question Micah too. And that's where the suspense really built, because the more we saw of Veronica, the more we realized how little we actually knew about the real. The tension between his on-camera life and off-camera choices grew sharper with every episode. In confessionals he spoke about his goals, his career, his independence. But in scenes with Veronica, his actions told another story, one of distraction, immaturity, and denial. It was as if there were two Micahs: the golden boy edited for prime time, and the boyfriend Veronica saw late at night when no one else was watching. And fans felt that duality deeply. Some defended him, saying he was young, still figuring things out, entitled to mistakes. Others sided with Veronica, arguing that charm and ambition mean nothing without accountability. Online debates grew heated, with viewers dissecting every episode, every look, every unanswered call. Was Micah really ready for love? Or was Veronica just another chapter in a story curated to make him look untouchable? Veronica's role in all of this cannot be overstated. She wasn't just another love interest dropped in for drama, she was the catalyst for a reckoning. By voicing her concerns, by daring to question Micah's golden boy mask, she gave fans the courage to question it too. And once those questions started, they couldn't be unasked. Because here's the truth about golden boys, their glow is only as strong as the people who believe in it. And the moment Veronica stopped believing, the cracks became impossible to ignore. What made it even more powerful was how real it felt. Unlike so many contrived reality TV relationships, Veronica's doubts rang authentic. You could see the love in her eyes, but also the weariness. You could feel that this wasn't just about screen time. It was about whether she could actually build a future with someone whose priorities seemed split between ambition and indulgence. The suspense of this arc didn't come from explosive fights or dramatic walkouts. It came from the quiet unraveling, the way small disappointments piled up until they became impossible to ignore. Veronica's patience, Micah's evasions, the silence of unanswered calls, these were the cracks that showed viewers the truth. And once you saw them, you couldn't go back to believing in the flawless golden boy. By the end of this stretch of episodes, fans were left on edge. The golden boy who had once been untouchable now looked vulnerable, even flawed. Veronica had shifted the narrative from triumph to tension, from hero to human, and that shift left everyone wondering if Micah's golden boy image could crack. What would come next when it finally shattered? Because golden boys don't fall quietly. They fall loudly, publicly, and in ways that force everyone watching to question why they believed in the first place. And with Veronica, Micah's fall had finally begun. Every golden boy story has a moment when the shine begins to dull. For Micah Plath, that moment wasn't a single dramatic scene caught on camera, it was a slow unraveling, the kind of drip feed of truth that fans piece together episode by episode, social media post by social media post. By day, Micah was still being framed as the handsome driven model breaking free from Cairo, Georgia, but by night, another story was playing out, one of parties, broken promises, and choices that didn't line up with the image he worked so hard to project. That's where the theme of duality comes in. Because if we're being honest, Micah wasn't just living two lives for Veronica, he was living two lives for all of us. On the show, he was the charming son who made it, the golden boy we were supposed to root for. But outside of those perfectly packaged episodes, Veronica and eventually the fans themselves started to see something darker. Take the episodes where Veronica voiced her concerns. At first it seemed small, her questioning why Micah was so hard to reach, or why he always seemed busy when she called. But then the picture grew clearer. The unanswered texts, the late-night returns, the half-hearted promises that never seemed to stick. These weren't just little quirks of dating someone ambitious, they were red flags, and Veronica knew it. On screen, her voice carried the weight of every partner who has ever wondered if the person they love is being honest. And for fans, those red flags hit close to home, because while TLC still tried to stitch together the polished version of Micah's life, the modeling shoots, the sunny California lifestyle, the Big Brother smile, viewers couldn't ignore the cracks. Social media lit up with comments that read more like confessions. Something about Micah feels off lately. Why does Veronica look so sad in every scene with him? We wanted him to succeed, but this doesn't feel right. It was in that tension, between what we were shown and what we felt, that Micah's double life truly came into focus. Fans weren't just watching a romance falter, they were watching the betrayal of their own investment. After all, reality TV relies on trust. Viewers don't just tune in for the drama, they buy into the characters, they root for them, defend them, and in Micah's case they hold them up as proof that breaking free from toxic systems can lead to happiness. But what happens when that proof starts to crumble? Veronica's role here is almost symbolic. She isn't just a girlfriend navigating the messiness of love, she's the stand-in for the audience, the mirror reflecting our own doubts. When she calls out Micah's inconsistencies, it's not just about him showing up late or ignoring her calls. It's about the larger betrayal of trust, the realization that the boy we cheered for might not be the man we thought he was becoming. And that's where the betrayal cuts the deepest. Because Veronica wasn't the only one left hurt. Fans felt it too. They saw their golden boy slipping into patterns that looked more like escapism than growth. The modeling gigs and LA lifestyle didn't look like freedom anymore, they looked like distractions. Every unanswered call from Veronica echoed as an unanswered call from the audience, who had invested in his story only to feel deceived. Think about it. Reality television sells us redemption arcs because we crave them. We want to believe that people can grow, that breaking free from a strict, suffocating childhood can lead to something better. Micah embodied that dream, until he didn't. And when the mask slipped, it wasn't just his image that cracked, it was the hope that we, the viewers, had attached to him. Fans turned to social media not just to vent, but to mourn. The comment sections became confessionals, where people admitted they no longer recognized the Micah they once rooted for. Some felt protective of Veronica, siding with her pain. Others felt angry at TLC for editing a narrative that seemed dishonest in hindsight. And through it all, the dominant emotion was betrayal. Because let's be honest, the golden boy wasn't just Veronica's partner, he was ours. And when he let her down, he let us down too. This is the power and the danger of reality TV's curated personas. They invite us to believe, to invest, and to hope. But when those carefully constructed facades start to crumble, the fallout is emotional, personal, and raw. With Micah, the duality of golden boy by day and party boy by night didn't just ruin a relationship, it broke the bond between character and audience, reminding us that even in the world of reality television, masks can only hold for so long. And as the episodes wore on, one thing became clear: Veronica's heartbreak was never just her own, it was ours too. By the time Micah's cracks began to show, the question wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the system that shaped him, the machine that polished his edges, and the audience who bought into every beat of the story. Because if there's one thing Welcome to Plathville teaches us, it's that reality television isn't simply about capturing moments, it's about manufacturing them. And Micah wasn't just a participant, he was a product. To understand Micah's golden boy arc, you have to pull back the curtain and look at the mechanics of how redemption stories are built. TLC knows its formula. Every family-centered reality show relies on archetypes: the rebel, the saint, the victim, the golden child. And from the earliest episodes, the Plaths were divided neatly into those roles. Mariah became the rebel, the one who dared to dye her hair, blast music, and push against the suffocating rules of Cairo, Georgia. Lydia became the saint, loyal, obedient, almost angelic, in her devotion to her parents' values. Ethan was cast as the trapped one, caught between loyalty to his wife, Olivia, and the stranglehold of his upbringing. Each archetype was easy to understand, easy to root for or against. But Micah, he was given the role every viewer loves most, the redemption arc. Producers carefully framed his move to Los Angeles as a fresh start. Every modeling gig, every photo shoot, every sun-drenched scene of him laughing with new friends was presented as proof that breaking free from Cairo's restrictions could lead to success. We were encouraged to see him not as reckless or lost, but as brave, not as someone stumbling, but as someone soaring. This wasn't accidental. Reality television thrives on redemption because it gives the audience hope. If Micah could escape, maybe others trapped in strict, suffocating systems could too. But what the show didn't highlight, or at least didn't linger on, were the trade-offs. The unanswered calls, the late-night parties, the emotional cost of living a double life. Those were edited into the background, softened, framed as small bumps on the road to success. Compare this to how his siblings were treated. Mariah's rebellion was amplified, made to look chaotic, dramatic, and almost self-destructive. Lydia's obedience was glorified, but also used as contrast, the saintly sister versus the wayward ones. Ethan's struggles were framed as tragic, his marriage drama given the weight of inevitability, as if he could never truly escape. Each sibling's story was valuable, but only Micah's was polished into a hero's journey. Why? Because every show needs a golden boy. Every audience wants someone safe to root for. Micah was marketable, he was handsome, hard-working, and unthreatening. He represented the shiny possibility that everything could work out, and that's the narrative TLC was eager to sell. And then there's Los Angeles itself. The city wasn't just a backdrop in Micah's story, it was a character. For decades, Hollywood has sold itself as the land of reinvention, the place where anyone can escape their past and build something new. For Micah, Louisiana symbolized freedom from Cairo, freedom from Kim and Barry, freedom from rules. But like any character, Louisiana demanded something in return. It demanded performance. It demanded a mask. It demanded that Micah not only reinvent himself but constantly prove that reinvention was working. Fans bought into it. We posted about his shoots, celebrated his wins, and cheered every time he stood taller than the role he had been given in his childhood. We became part of the machine, consuming the polished product, ignoring the rough edges, and telling ourselves that the golden boy was real. And when the cracks appeared, when Veronica's tears showed us something the edits didn't, the betrayal cut deeper precisely because we had been complicit. That's the hard truth about reality television. The audience isn't just watching, we're participating. We cheer for the redemption arc, we invest in the characters, and we create the demand that producers meet with polished stories. We want the mask as much as the star does, because it's easier to believe in a clean arc of struggle and triumph than to face the messy, complicated truth. With Micah, the cycle was textbook. He was built up as the golden boy, given a hero's edit, framed as proof that freedom leads to success. And when reality didn't match the edit, when the double life surfaced, the audience felt not only disappointed in him, but also angry at the system that had sold us the fantasy. It's not just Micah who let us down. It's the machine that promised us his story would be simple when it never could be. This is the brilliance and the cruelty of the reality TV machine. It doesn't just shape the stories we watch, it shapes the way we think about the people in them. It encourages us to reduce Mariah to the rebel, Lydia to the saint, Ethan to the trapped one, and Micah to the golden boy. It teaches us to root for archetypes rather than people, to celebrate curated triumphs rather than messy truths. And when those truths surface, we're left feeling complicit in the very betrayal we're mourning. Because at the end of the day, the golden boy persona wasn't just Micah's to carry, it was ours to believe in. And when reality surfaced, it wasn't just his mask that fell, it was ours too.
Reflection and emotional core. If there's one truth that cuts through all the noise, it's this. Veronica was the heart of Micah's story. Not the producers, not the audience, not even Micah himself. It was Veronica, her patience, her trust, her willingness to believe in the man behind the camera that gave this entire arc its emotional core. Because Veronica wasn't just a girlfriend caught in a messy relationship, she became something bigger, something symbolic. She was the mirror for every fan who dared to believe the glossy edits and the polished redemption arc. She embodied the cost of masks, the quiet, invisible toll of loving someone who may be more performance than person. Think about it. Veronica never signed up for fame. She didn't ask to become part of TLC's machine or to play a role in Micah's storyline. She thought she was in a relationship, not a narrative. She thought she was with Micah, not with Micah the golden boy. And that difference matters, because when the cracks appeared, when unanswered calls piled up, when nightlife habits crept in, when inconsistencies became impossible to ignore, it wasn't just Veronica's trust that broke. It was her reality. That's why her presence resonates so deeply. Viewers weren't just watching a breakup, they were watching themselves. They saw in Veronica the same faith they had placed in Micah's story, and when that faith crumbled, it felt personal. The betrayal wasn't just romantic, it was communal. Fans felt it in their bones, the sting of realizing that the version of Micah they had invested in might not exist, at least not in the way the show promised. And Veronica carried that sting publicly, on camera, in a way most of us are lucky never to endure. Every crack in her voice, every hesitant confession of doubt, every scene where her love collided with the reality of who Micah was becoming, it became part of the emotional ledger of the series. And here's the thing, it would be too easy to put all of this on Micah, to say he alone wore the mask, that he alone betrayed the trust. But that's not the whole story, because Micah was not just a man, he was a product. A character crafted by editors, shaped by producers, and framed by the demands of an audience hungry for a golden boy. He played his role, but he didn't create it. The system did, and Veronica paid the price. That's the cruelest truth of reality television. The fallout isn't evenly distributed. Micah got the arc, the screen time, the chance to reinvent himself in LA. Producers got their drama, their ratings, their carefully balanced archetypes. Fans got their golden boy at least for a while. But Veronica, she got the raw deal. She got the messy version, the late-night doubts, the unanswered texts. She lived with the cracks long before they ever became part of the storyline. And in many ways, Veronica became the emotional center precisely because she was the only one not playing a role. She wasn't the rebel, or the saint, or the trapped one. She wasn't even the golden boy's supportive girlfriend. She was simply herself, real, vulnerable, and unprotected by the gloss of editing. That's why fans rallied around her, because for once, reality TV gave us a glimpse of reality that wasn't manufactured. Her experience forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. What does it mean to love someone who has been turned into a persona? What does it cost to invest in someone's redemption arc only to discover that the story was written for us, not by them? And how much responsibility falls on the audience, on us, for buying into it in the first place? Empathy becomes the only response. Not just empathy for Veronica, though she deserves every ounce of it, but empathy for everyone caught in the machinery. For Micah, pressured to maintain a mask he may not have been ready to wear. For his siblings, typecast into roles that flattened their complexity. For the fans, who wanted to believe in something hopeful, only to be let down. But empathy doesn't erase the weight of betrayal. If anything, it deepens it. Because betrayal here isn't just about broken trust between two people, it's about the rupture between persona and person, between story and reality, between what we're promised and what we're given. Veronica bore that rupture in the most personal way possible, through love. We bore it through screens, through hashtags, through the hollow feeling of realizing the mask had slipped, and that's why Veronica matters most. She reminds us that behind every polished arc and every golden boy narrative, there are real people paying the price for the illusion. She reminds us that the system doesn't just bend reality, it breaks it, sometimes beyond repair. And she reminds us that love, trust, and vulnerability don't fit neatly into a storyline, no matter how carefully producers try to edit them. So when we look back on this season, it won't just be Micah's double life we remember. It will be Veronica's quiet strength, her raw honesty, and the way she symbolized the cost of believing in masks. She is the heart of this story, and her experience forces us to ask, was it worth it? Was the Golden Boy arc worth the betrayal, the heartbreak, the disillusionment? For many fans, the answer is no, because in Veronica's tears we saw our own, in her doubts we felt our own, and in her heartbreak we recognized the truth that reality television rarely admits. Behind every redemption arc is someone left holding the weight of what isn't shown, and maybe that's the real story. Not Micah's Golden Boy persona, not the mask slipping, not even the betrayal itself. The real story is Veronica, and the way she turned the spotlight back on the cost of the machine. Final analysis and call to action. And so here we are, from the tight grip of Georgia's fundamentalist home, to the golden streets of Los Angeles, to Veronica's tears on screen. The story of Micah Plath has taken us on a journey that feels less like a reality show and more like a cautionary tale. It's a story about masks, the ones we wear, the ones we watch, and the ones we desperately want to believe in. When Micah first stepped onto our screens, he was framed as the escapee, the boy who broke free, the one who could trade farm fields for modeling shoots, repression for reinvention, rigidity for freedom, and for a while we bought it. We celebrated it. He was proof that you could leave Georgia's strict rules and write a new chapter. But as the episodes unfolded, the cracks in the mask appeared. The long nights, the whispered doubts, the missed calls, the double life, and standing in the middle of it all was Veronica, carrying the emotional weight that the show only partially revealed. She loved Micah the man, not Micah the persona, and when those two selves collided, she and we were left to pick up the pieces. That's the part TLC doesn't want us to sit with for too long. Because if we look too closely, we start asking uncomfortable questions. Was Micah really being protected, as the show suggested? Or was TLC protecting its own product? Because let's be honest, a Golden Boy arc sells. It keeps viewers tuned in, it paints LA as a shimmering land of second chances, and it gives us, the audience, a feel-good story we can root for. But what happens when the truth doesn't line up with the edit? When the Golden Boy isn't quite as golden in the daylight? When his cracks can't be smoothed over in post-production? That's when people like Veronica become collateral damage, and that's when viewers, loyal fans who invest time, trust, and emotion, start to feel betrayed. The truth is, reality TV isn't designed to protect the people inside it. It's designed to protect the narrative. Micah's siblings know this all too well. Mariah's rebel arc, Lydia's saintly role, Ethan's trapped identity. Each of them has been slotted into a category, polished until it shines, and packaged for consumption. And Micah, he was crowned the Golden Boy, and Golden Boys don't get to fall apart on camera, at least not until it benefits the story. And yet, LA itself exposes everything. That city doesn't allow masks to stay on forever. It demands performance, yes, but it also magnifies cracks until they're too big to hide. The same city that promised Micah reinvention became the stage where his double life unraveled, and all of us watching at home were pulled into that unraveling too. Here's the hardest part to admit: we are complicit. We cheer when TLC sells us redemption. We buy the Golden Boy storyline. We want to believe in it, because hope is a powerful drug. And then when the cracks appear, we feel betrayed, as if we weren't part of the machine the whole time. But maybe that's the point. Maybe what Veronica's story shows us is that reality television isn't just about the people on screen, it's about us. Our hunger for stories, our willingness to accept polished edits as truth, our craving for redemption arcs, even when they come at someone else's expense. And so we're left with a choice. Do we keep playing along? Do we let TLC hand us neatly packaged characters and call it reality? Or do we demand more? More honesty, more accountability, more recognition that behind every storyline are real people with real hearts, people like Veronica, who never asked to be part of this machine but ended up paying its highest price. So I'll turn it over to you. What do you think? Is Micah being protected, or is TLC protecting its product? Was this ever really about redemption, or was it about selling us a fantasy? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation isn't just about one person, it's about an entire system. And if you've been with me through this journey, from Georgia's iron grip, to LA's glittering facade, to Veronica's heartbreak, to the questions that still haunt us, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this video. Because the more we talk about the masks, the harder it becomes for the machine to keep hiding behind them. And maybe, just maybe, that's the beginning of change. But before we close, let's sit with this one haunting truth. The masks we wear may protect us, they may dazzle others, they may even convince entire audiences. But sooner or later, they slip, and when they do, someone always ends up paying the price. For Micah, it was his double life. For Veronica, it was her heart. For us, it was the disillusionment of realizing the Golden Boy might have been just another storyline. And so the question lingers, echoing long after the credits roll: whose mask will slip next? And when it does, who will pay the price?